And after we passed the mandate, the electric company finally put a team of people on figuring out how they were going to do that. And they publicly came out and said, we figured it out. We can actually do this by 2040. We did a calculation. If they did it by 2040, that would save ratepayers around $7 billion. It's 1.5 million people. So what we did to follow it up is we changed the business model of the utility so they make more money by switching to renewables. Guess who's our best friend now? And so our 2030 target was 40% renewable energy. We have already hit our 2030 target today.
Welcome to episode 74 of People Are the Answer. I truly believe that people are the only answer to the world's many problems. I'm Jeffrey M. Zucker, a serial entrepreneur, here to learn how innovators are creating outsized, transformational social impact and to shine a light on all the good happening in a world often hyper-focused on the negative. Today's episode features Henk Rogers, a serial entrepreneur best known for bringing Tetris to the world after it was created in the Soviet Union, which was recently covered in the hit Apple movie Tetris, starring Taron Egerton. Henk's story goes way beyond video games, though, as he's a climate activist and entrepreneur whose work to get Hawaii on a path to 100% renewable energy has inspired movement in that direction across the globe. His organization, Blue Planet Alliance, is now focused on helping island nations in the same way they've helped Hawaii. He is also very active in space exploration and pushing humanity to eventual alternatives to Earth. His charisma, passion, and drive will come right through your speakers into your heart. Henk and I discuss his upbringing in the Netherlands and New York, his path to Hawaii, Japan, and beyond. We do go into the Tetris story and his gaming background, but once we dig into his work in climate and space is where the conversation really soars. We discuss how mutually beneficial bottom-up solutions are the path to success, which really resonated with me. I was deeply inspired and motivated by this discussion and hope you will feel the same. Here's Henk Rogers on People Are the Answer. Henk, thank you so much for joining me on People Are the Answer.
Well, thank you for having me.
As a fellow entrepreneur, as someone else that is in social impact, really admire what you do. And I was really honored to have you, and would love if you could start off by just telling the audience, your name, where you're based, and what your current role is.
My name is Henk Rogers. That's Henk with an E because I'm from the Netherlands originally. I'm currently based, I got 1 foot in New York City and 1 foot in Hawaii. I've got 2 organizations, the Blue Planet Foundation in Hawaii, working to end use of carbon-based fuel in Hawaii and the rest of the states. And then the Blue Planet Alliance in New York, which is doing pretty much the work that Blue Planet Foundation did, but for the rest of the world. We kind of want to fix everything by 2045.
I love that. I like those reach for the stars goals. And, in general in life, what would you say motivates you?
Oh, it motivates me. Everything motivates me. Children motivate me. I see children and they've got the whole future ahead of them. And I remember being a child and, being so looking forward to the future. And, well, we're kind of mucking it up. So I want to make sure that we fix it before they grow up.
Yeah, no, I feel similarly. I have 2 young children, my oldest being 3 years old, and it certainly changes your perspective on life. And then you look at everyone else's kids too, that you're leaving a world to.
I've got 4 children and 8 grandchildren with number
Wow.
9 on the way. So yeah, I've
Congratulations.
got a lot of work.
That's amazing. And, you mentioned being located in Hawaii. Obviously, it's a very difficult time in Hawaii right now. What is sort of your perspective on what's going on? What can people listening do to help?
What people can do directly, which is what I did, was contribute to the Red Cross. The Red Cross is an organization that's on the ground wherever, every emergency everywhere in the world, and they're the most equipped to deploy resources. How I feel about what happened to Maui, I feel that, it's finally hit home, and it's going to hit home for every person in the world at some point. If not now, next year or the year after. I mean, it's really getting bad. The fires, there's 1,000 fires in Canada, seriously. And so this is the how can I say, the tip of the iceberg. and we have to roll up our sleeves and treat it like the emergency that it is. We're kind of still trying to get away with thinking, well, things will work out somehow. No, they won't. We have to get up. We have to do something about it. We have to treat this climate emergency the way we treated COVID, the way we treated
Mm-hmm.
COVID. The whole world shut down and did things differently for a couple of years, but now we're back to business as usual.
Mm-hmm.
Business as usual isn't going to work going forward.
Yeah, that's so true, and look forward to digging more into your work and how it is affecting that change. Um, and in the meantime, though, where did you grow up, and what was it like there?
So I grew up in the Netherlands, 11 years in Holland and 8 years in New York City. So I would say my formative years were more New York City than anything else. And at that time, the big deal that we were demonstrating against was the war in Vietnam, because we as 17-year-olds were facing the draft when we turned 18, and we're going to be sent to a war in a place. I mean, what did they ever do to us? The answer is nothing. And look at where we are today. What was that whole war all about? It was just a waste of life. And so we demonstrated against the war, and we stopped the war. That's the way I look at it. And I believe that today young people have to demonstrate against climate change, and they have to stop climate change.
So you grew up, between the Netherlands initially, then New York. What do you think spending all that time in New York as an adolescent, did for you and your personality and your sort of your gumption?
Yeah, I went to I went to we're going to say a math and science high school called Stuyvesant High School, and you could say it's also a political science high school. So we were the most active high school in New York when it came to demonstrating, that kind of thing. Um, and so, yeah, I kind of came out of New York with an attitude that I could do anything, and that someday I was going to have to save the world if I had to. And it seems like it's coming to that. The thing that happened after New York, by the way, is I moved to Hawaii and I went to University of Hawaii. I spent a year on the beach, so I fell in love with the ocean. So I got a good dose of what nature and what paradise is like and what it should be like and what we're actually trashing about the world.
Would you say that when you were in New York or when you were in Hawaii, was there a point at which, you really felt like you wanted to give back to humanity and to the world? It seems like it was something that was already on your mind.
Yeah, I've always just kind of taken that part of it of my life for granted. I'm the oldest of, well, originally it was 8 boys. And so, and so I spent a lot of time during my teen years, helping my mother with taking care of all those boys. There's a gap between me and number two, about 7 years. So I was really a big brother to the rest of them. I wasn't really one of them, and I just take for granted that I have to carry the weight, of having to take care of all those brothers. But I ultimately, the whole world, all of humanity is my family. So if I can, then I have to take care of them as well. And I don't. There's no really turning point where I changed to become that way. I've just sort of always been that way.
And you mentioned going to University of Hawaii. I have in my notes that you majored in computer science and minored in Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a gamer at heart, and so people said, "Oh, you're wasting so much time playing Dungeons and Dragons," and that was the basis of my career. So anything that you're really passionate about while you're in school, that's probably the thing that you should be doing after you're done with it. Follow your passion, and then when you have a chance to move into that field, do something that you're excited about, that you love to do. And if you're outside the box, do not get in the box. Stay outside that box.
I love that advice. Thank you for sharing that. And I certainly agree. And, what initially got you into gaming?
Again, I've been a gamer all my life. My father was an avid Go player. Go being a Japanese board game, or Chinese, whatever you want to call it. And so, yeah, I was dragged into it. So he was a gamer, but he was focused on Go. I was a gamer focused on everything. I mean, starting with Monopoly when I was a little kid, to Dungeons and Dragons, to Settlers of Catan as a board game, and then of course, computer games. There were no computer games when I went to high school. It was just punch cards back then. So when I had my chance, it was 1983. Personal computers came out in Japan. I was living in Japan at the time. That was my chance to make a game. And up till then, I'd only done homework assignments, and I decided to make a role-playing game. And it was the first role-playing game in Japan. It was the number one game in Japan in 1984 in 64K. If any of you out there know what 64K looks like, I made a role-playing game in 64K, including graphics and 3D.
It's pretty incredible. And what was
Yeah,
that game called? Was
it
that
was
Black
called
Onyx?
the Black
Yeah,
Onyx.
yeah. Amazing. And I love that and how it sort of connects to the passion and what you were focused on. Um, and I'm curious, are you still a gamer? Are there any games out today that you love?
Um, I just don't have time to spend that kind of time on games anymore. Between my foundations and the businesses that I run, that keeps me pretty much busy all the time. Um, if I were to play, I play little puzzle games. I play Wordle
Yeah.
in the morning, so to speak.
Yep.
That kind of stuff. It keeps me in contact with other people
Yep.
on the game level.
I like that. And so I saw that you initially didn't graduate from University of Hawaii, but you received an honorary doctorate in 2015. What a full circle moment. What was that like?
I when I after 3 years of going to school and taking only courses that I was interested in, because I had to do odd jobs to work my way through school. They called me and they said, "Mr. Rogers, what are you doing?" And I said, "What do you mean?" He says, "Well, you haven't taken any of your core requirements." And I said, "Well, I've already been to high school. I'm not taking any of your core requirements." And he said, "Well, if you don't take your core requirements, then you won't graduate." And I said, "Well, there must be some mistake. I'm not here to graduate. I'm here to get an education." And I've already got it. Thank you very much. And I moved on. And obviously, I had enough of an education to make a computer game and to start a business and do all the things that I've done in life, so to speak.
Yeah.
And then eventually, they recognized, that I actually did get an education. And
Right.
I think that's the same thing happened to me in high school. By the way, I kind of dropped out of high school, and they recently gave me a trophy and an award at a gala, being like one of their great graduates or whatever, that I didn't graduate. And I told them, look,
Yeah.
I got my attitude that I can do anything here, both at Stuyvesant High School and at University of Hawaii. So I credit them with helping me become who I am. I didn't need the paper. I've never needed the paper. I just needed the education. I needed the confidence, and I think I got that.
Yeah. Absolutely. And what took you to Japan?
Oh, I chased a girl to Japan. Fell in love with a girl, chased her to Japan. We had 4 kids and 8 grandkids. So
It worked out. Yeah, that's amazing. And tell me about going from Black Onyx to when Tetris came into your life.
so I wrote the first 2 games for the company, my own company called Bulletproof Software. We don't mess around. and and then I started traveling around the world to look for games to bring to Japan. So I would go to all the trade shows around the world where companies would show their games. And I, for example, brought the first few games that Electronic Arts published in the U.S. And Star Wars, a whole bunch of different titles to Japan. And I found Tetris at the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas. And if you want to know that story, you can watch the movie. The movie's called Tetris. It's on Apple TV Plus. It's a embellishment of a true story.
Yeah, no, I love that. And certainly I watched the movie. I thought it was great. I know they took a few cinematic liberties, but highly recommend to anybody listening.
Yeah, I mean, I was terrified when I was reading the script, thinking, "Oh, this is going to be so bad." But actually, when I watched the movie, it was so good. I was really surprised. I just had no idea how the distance between a script and an actual movie, is considerable. The director had to think up like camera scenes and like build this whole thing out. And amazing job, can I say?
Absolutely. A fantastic movie. And I'm actually in the film production space among the various businesses that I work in. And it's really incredible to see sort of that transition from paper to screen, especially when executed so incredibly well. And I listened to you in an interview say, like, you were just blown away when you got to set to see, like, wow, this is a real Hollywood movie.
Oh yeah, are you kidding me? So they had to add a couple of scenes because people couldn't figure out why I was in so much trouble, and so they added the whole banker scene. And I went to England because they shot the movie during COVID, and so I couldn't get on set because I would have had to quarantine for 2 weeks, which I said no, I'm not doing that. Anyway, I went to London for the reshoot or the extra scenes. They built an office inside of a soundstage with a backdrop of all of Tokyo. This thing was like massive. My apartment in Yokohama with the Yokohama backdrop, and then Tokyo backdrop, and they had built it, and then Tarrant got sick. They had to take the whole thing down, and then a few months later, they had to build it again.
Oh my
I
gosh.
just, I mean, the amount of money, the number of people that are involved in creating that was just ridiculous.
Yeah.
I can understand that it's tens of millions of dollars to,
Yeah.
that go into the production value on that stuff.
I mean, what does that feel like to have a period of your life shown in this huge Hollywood movie?
Well, it's how can I say? It's flattering. It's flattering that they would actually make a movie about some part of my life. But that part of my life was pretty exciting. I actually did get on a plane with a tourist visa, not knowing anybody in the Soviet Union, and just adventure my way through it. And yeah, I managed to pull it off. That was the crazy thing. So,
Awesome.
and if you watch the movie, when I got there and first met Mr. Belikov, he told me that he never licensed the console rights to anyone. Like, holy smokes, I had like used all of my in-laws' land as collateral to borrow money to buy cartridges. And if somebody came along and said, no, that you can't publish that game, I would have had to trash those cartridges and lose all of my in-laws' property. That would have been a
Wow.
disaster. So yeah, I managed to fight my way through all of that.
I mean, it's incredible the perseverance to be able to get through that. And I know, like you said, the Tetris story has been talked about a lot and covered in the movie, so we won't dig too deep. But I have a couple more questions. One, how similar was it to real life when Nintendo showed you the Game Boy?
Okay, so I saw Game Boy in Japan. It was common knowledge to the entire industry, so I knew it was coming. It wasn't like a big surprise. So that scene of me first seeing Game Boy, that was uh, that was Hollywood taking, I don't know, a few months of my Game Boy impression and squeezing it into, I don't know, what, 3 minutes. And I mean, that's amazing because, yeah, of course, my reaction to Game Boy is, wow, yes, this is the perfect game machine for Tetris. That was my reaction, but it wasn't something that happened in minutes. It's something that happened in weeks.
Well, growing up, I had a brother that was about 10 years older than me. And my dad, we had Game Boys around, and that was my first experience of Tetris. It was the only thing my dad played on the Game Boy was Tetris. My dad was, he was an entrepreneur, an engineer. And yeah, for whatever reason, it could hold his attention, sort of take his mind off of things. And it would come on family trips. And it's such a deep memory in my heart.
How old were you when you first played Tetris?
Oh, geez, probably. Let's see. What year did it come out on the Game Boy in the US? Like 90 something?
No, 80. It would be 89. It would
89.
be
I
later, 89, or yeah, 89.
I mean, I was probably 3 or 4 the first time that I got handed the Game Boy to try it
Exactly,
out. Yeah.
exactly. So I have a son, and he was 3. His older brother was playing, and he was 7. So you must be like what, 37?
I'm
My
35.
my, you're
Yeah.
35. Okay, all right.
So I think I had it like a little bit after it had already been out, but Yeah, I mean, it's just I don't have a ton of like very specific memories of being a kid, but I definitely remember that.
It's I'm sorry, but that's the Tetris effect. It's been imprinted in your brain. You will forever, if you see Tetris pieces moving somewhere, your eyes will be drawn to them, and you'll think, "What's going on there?" You know.
When did the music come into play? Because I know that part sticks with you as well.
The music came when I was looking for music to put on the Nintendo version that I was publishing in Japan in '88. I was looking for music that people would like, and so I thought if I pick a uh, I can say a classic folk song that has withstood the test of time, it would already have that. I mean, the song would already be a good song that people still sing. So there was only a couple of Russian songs I knew, and so I picked those, and I didn't have to pay any royalties. All I had to do is get a music programmer to say make that for me for the Nintendo, and it stuck. It's amazing how it stuck to the game. And today, if somebody makes a game and wants to use that music, they actually have to get permission from me to use it, which is very strange. I found that out when Nintendo wanted to use it for something, and they came to me and said, "Can we do it?" And I said, "Sure, why not?" But I didn't realize that I could get a sort of a, I don't know, a copyright on music that was invented hundreds of years ago.
Well, I can certainly hear it in my head when I think about it. And sort of the last thing I wanted to cover on Tetris is your relationship with the creator Alexei Pajitnov. It seems like you guys have a really incredible relationship that's persevered through a lot.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. So it starts when I meet him in the room for the first time, and he realizes that I'm a game designer. He's never met a game designer before. I was a game designer turned entrepreneur, but I was a game designer first, and he recognized that immediately. And so we started talking about game design, and like that was the beginning of our friendship. It's the thing that holds us together. Um, we couldn't be more different. He likes classical music. I like rock. He likes planning things ahead. I like spontaneity. So we're very different. But if we're in the same jurisdiction, like in the same city, it's a bottle of wine every other day. And we're not talking about Tetris. We have, unless we have to. Of course, from time to time we do. Like when we were working on the script, we work together going over the script and, oh, this can't possibly, you can't do this, that kind of stuff. But we work together, and I guess we are best friends. I mean, we've been that way for '89. Gosh, yeah, over 40 years now, 30 years, over 30 years.
It's pretty incredible, and what you guys have built with Tetris and um, where it's taken you. It's been really cool to see. And the next thing I sort of saw on your resume was Blue Lava Wireless. What was that?
So, long story short, I was in the business of licensing Tetris to other companies at that point in time. I wasn't publishing myself. And I'd gotten $1 million upfront from a Japanese company that was going to make games for mobile phones. Mobile phone games were taking off in Japan in a big way, and in the U.S. They hadn't taken off yet. And so we looked for a licensee, and the biggest offer we got was $25,000. I said, $25,000, seriously? Okay, obviously nobody here understands what's going to happen. And so I said, well, now I'm going to do it myself. And rolled up my sleeves, started a new company, and moved back to Hawaii because for at that time the handsets they only had 64K, so we're right back to when I graduated from or left college. It's 64K. So started the company in Hawaii, and I hired programmers, and I said I don't want anybody with experience because nobody understands. Like all the games were being made on CDs at that point, with hundreds of megabytes, and now we're talking about 64K. So I didn't need that experience. So yeah, 3 years later, the company offered me 25K, bought my company for over $100 million.
Wow,
So
that's amazing.
that was pretty funny.
I mean, I personally, as an entrepreneur, love stories of like that, where they kind of come full circle and you can go back to the people that didn't believe in you and have them show they believe in you now. You showed them.
I don't. It's fine. Like every entrepreneur is going to have a history of people saying no. Go get a job or something like that. So I could have gotten a job and I could still be working somewhere, but I'm not.
So let's dig into what you're currently focused on. What seems to be a really deep passion for you, Planet Alliance. You're working to solve the challenge of climate change and trying to create 100% clean energy.
Right. So I after I sold my blue lava, a month later I had a heart attack, 100% blockage of the widowmaker. I have two stents. I survived that, but in the ambulance, I said I said to the ceiling, I said, "No, I'm not going. I still have stuff to do." And in the recovery room, I thought about what did I mean by stuff, and I worked it backwards from the end of my life. What is it that's going to upset me if I didn't actually do something about it by the end of my life? And I found my bucket list. And the first item in my bucket list, or my missions in life, uh, I got out of the back of the newspaper. It said, "Oh, by the way, we're going to kill all the coral in the world by the end of the century." I said, "What the hell are you talking about?" And it's in the back of the newspaper in Hawaii. I mean, this is like should be front page news, but it's like it's like nobody's even noticing that we're doing this. It's ocean acidification caused by carbon dioxide, caused by us. And so I said, mission number one: end the use of carbon-based fuel. And I got to do it in the world, but in order to convince other people to do it in their jurisdiction, I kind of have to do it in my jurisdiction first. So it's like before I can ask somebody else to clean their room, I have to clean my room. My room being Hawaii, so I set about cleaning up Hawaii. Now, Hawaii at that time spent $6 billion a year on fossil fuel, 5 billion on oil, and $1 billion on coal. So the electric company was the biggest company in Hawaii. And I was saying, you guys got to go switch to renewable energy. And they're going like, huh, what are you talking about? That's not how we make electricity. We burn oil and coal. And so we were up against, a gigantic infrastructure, the biggest company and probably the most money leaking out of Hawaii. And we tried everything. But our big claim to fame is we finally got the people on our side, and we passed a mandate that says that Hawaii has to go 100% renewable energy for electricity by 2045. And 2 years later, California copied us, and now we have 12 other states that have the same legislation. Um, so we followed that up. It's like, how do you do it? How do you do that? And after we passed the mandate, the electric company finally put a team of people on figuring out how they were going to do that. And they publicly came out and said, we figured it out. We can actually do this by 2040. We did a calculation. If they did it by 2040, that would save ratepayers around $7 billion. It's 1.5 million people. So what we did to follow it up is we changed the business model of the utility so they make more money by switching to renewables. Guess who's our best friend now? And so our 2030 target was 40% renewable energy. We have already hit our 2030 target today. So first of all, you have to make the decision, and that makes everybody in your jurisdiction think about how the hell are we going to do this? And once they get over figuring it out, then they actually come up with a solution. Then you put the incentive in place so they make more money by doing that. And then all of a sudden things move super fast because it's not only the companies, it's the executives, it's the investors who get on your side. And ultimately, this is going to help everybody. It's win-win for everybody to switch to renewable energy.
Absolutely, and I like what you said in terms of sort of changing the incentive model around some of these things and making it work on so many different levels that people really step up to the plate and get it done. So, I mean, absolutely incredible, and I think the fact that you set an example for other states is just that can't even be overstated how impactful that is, and that you've pushed so many others in that direction.
You have to start somewhere, and I've been going to all the COPs. This year it's going to be COP 28. Um, Unfortunately, it's not working. Meaning, the good part is that they're telling us what's going on. So the IPCC, that part of it is amazing. We know exactly what's going on. Are we doing something about it? Not so much. in their moment of glory, they passed the Paris Agreement. First of all, the Paris Agreement doesn't go far enough. It doesn't solve the problem. And second of all, nobody's on track even for that. So, it's just not happening. So my attitude is it shouldn't be top down, it should be bottom up. And when I say bottom, I'm talking about groups of people in the world, wherever you are, uh, take your little piece of the world and get rid of carbon-based fuel. That's it. We've got cities going, we've got states going, we've got countries. Now we're doing island countries. Last year we did Tonga, Tuvalu, Palau, and we're basically hitting island countries with the idea in mind that it's going to be like Hawaii. So it makes the biggest difference. And they're the most under pain for climate change. And they contributed nothing to climate change. So anyway, the rest of the world needs to get our act together and just end the use of carbon-based fuel.
Yeah, well, it makes tremendous sense to start with those island nations. I'm really glad that you're able to bring your work there, and really, make a difference in those places and hopefully beyond. And it sounds like, as you should be, you're not satisfied with where the world is in general around climate change, but where do you feel like we're going in the right direction? Do you feel like there's light at the end of this tunnel?
Oh, absolutely. First of all, the amount of money and the amount of technology and the amount of production that's going into renewable energy is huge, and it's growing. It's like, I don't know if it's doubling every year, but it's somewhere along that line. All the incentives are there, the money is there, and now the pressure from climate change itself is there on people. So we're not going to go back. Everybody's going to switch to electric vehicles. We're not going to go back to burning coal. These things are going away, and they're not coming back. That's the main thing that everybody needs to understand. And once you understand that the change is actually going to happen, then things move a lot faster. Because there's a lot of noise, by OPEC and by coal producers saying, "Oh no, we can't do this. We have to have a slow transition or whatever it is," and they're just trying to make money off the end of oil and the end of coal. And what's going on right now, you just look at what's going on with Saudi Arabia. They're reducing
Yeah.
production so that the price goes up, because they realize that 10 years from now that they're not going to be making money there. And
Yeah.
so they're using all that money that they're getting to, they're buying game companies, for Christ's sakes.
It's
You
true.
know, yeah, it's like, wow. They're switching their economy to other stuff because they basically have a welfare economy. All those people that have lived and gotten money from the government for doing nothing, now they finally have to go and start doing something. That's a
Yeah.
transition. But, every oil producing country needs to go through that. And every oil producing company needs to understand that they're in the energy business, not the oil business. And if they start thinking I'm in the energy business, then they can start thinking about, well, how am I going to make money off the future energy business, which is coming at us? I mean, look at the utility. They're making money off renewable energy now. They don't have to make money off of oil or coal. And that's the whole world is going to work that way. So people ask me if I have hope. And I always say, no, I don't have hope. I have determination, because we are doing this. There's no question in my mind that we're doing this. And everybody in Hawaii, for example, used to say, oh, there's no way we can go 100%. And today everybody says, of course we're doing this. That's the mind change that I need to say in the world. Everybody needs to understand that it is happening. We are fixing this. And there is no, none of this like, oh, can we? Or no, absolutely we can. There's never been a situation in human history where we haven't overcome major obstacles. I mean, look at what we did for COVID. It's like, oh my gosh, we invented whole new technologies and crushed that disease.
Yeah, we're very capable, and I really appreciate what you said about bottom up solutions and people that are on the ground floor of their communities. That's where you can have truly the most effective change. If you're enjoying this episode, I would greatly appreciate if you could review, like, comment, or subscribe on your favorite platforms. Your engaged support goes a long way in helping the show grow and getting our impactful guests heard. Now back to the show. So for those listening that are maybe feeling overwhelmed, like how do I add to this, or how do I help fix the problem? It sounds like you're saying, if you just start to change your mindset a little bit, everyone around you will start to change as well, and that'll push everything in the right direction.
Yeah, so I don't eat meat. Uh, when I'm in New York, I ride a bicycle. I don't have a car. In Hawaii, my house and my ranch they're off grid, and I have electric vehicles in both places, and I only charge my car from solar. So my transportation, the Achilles heel that I have is that I still travel around the world on jet planes, which really kills my carbon footprint. But that is also a matter of time before we figure out how to make hydrogen planes or electric planes or that kind of stuff. Everybody's working on it, and we'll find a solution to that as well.
Yeah, I believe that as well. And speaking of finding solutions, I saw that you're launching an incubator program in October for lawmakers in these island countries that you're working in. Could you tell me more about that?
Yeah, it's not so much about lawmakers, but it is about the laws. So what we do is we bring a minimum of three people from each jurisdiction, somebody from the government, somebody from the utility, and somebody from the private sector, meaning the people, maybe environmentalists. And we bring all those people. Those are the three groups of people that we need to get to work together to come up with a solution. Because the environmentalists can't tell the government and the utility what to do. It's got to come from inside. And so we bring three of those people, different people, to Hawaii, and then we show them what we did in Hawaii. We introduced them to the legislators who made it happen. The utility people who were like during the transition of before and after. We introduced them to the renewable energy companies that are operating in Hawaii. Um, by the way, it doesn't cost any money. Everybody is like, where's the money? I said, you have to put out an RFP. Somebody will come along and do the business of selling you renewable energy. That's what happened in Hawaii. So all this renewable energy is being done by independent companies, and they sell electricity to the utility. Now, utility, when they buy oil to make electricity, costs them 25 cents, probably more now, 25 cents per kilowatt hour. Renewable, wind and solar, come in at 8 cents. And if you add batteries, now it's up to 12 cents. It's half the cost. So
Yeah.
if they make 10% on the price of oil, 2.5 cents, we can say, okay, you can make 3 cents on renewable energy. That's a huge improvement in their bottom line. And so, of course, it works for everybody. The people pay less for electricity. The company makes more on electricity. It's win-win.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's how you really have to set these things up to be successful, is you have to line up the incentives in a proper way. And it's really cool to hear how you're doing that. And you started a company, Blue Planet Energy, within some of this timeline.
Yeah. So what happened was one of the laws we passed in Hawaii was a solar rebate, and we created a boom in solar, rooftop solar. We ended up with 200 solar installer companies in Hawaii, and all of a sudden the electric company goes, whoa, whoa, we can't handle that much variable electricity on the grid, and they stopped giving a grid tie. Normally what the way it works is that during the day you have all the solar energy, you feed it into the grid, and at night you get it back from the grid. But the electric company said, no, we can't handle that. So they stopped doing grid tie. So then I thought, what do we do about that? And the answer is you do storage. You do localized storage so that you store the electricity and you use it at night instead of giving it to the electric company and having them, sell it back to you at night. And so that's how I end up taking my house, my ranch, bunch of my property off grid to study what that was like. And then we started doing it for other people. Now we have a whole company dedicated with 25 people that are doing it for people all across the country and Latin America now. So yeah, it's part of the solution is energy storage, big part.
Yeah, I mean, that's an incredible piece of the puzzle. It's really, I really appreciate the way that you tackle these problems from a lot of different angles, and try to figure out whatever way you can to sort of add to the effort to fix them. And so I think Blue Planet Energy is a great example of that.
Thank you.
So I'm curious, I also saw that you have a really a passion for space exploration, and I'm curious, where did that come from, and be curious to dig into some of your experience there.
Mission number 3 is to make a backup of life by going to other planets. You could say one way of looking at it is just in case. Um, there's a small chance. It's very small, but it's still a small chance that a big rock from space comes and wipes out this planet. I mean, that is, it's happened before. It wiped out the dinosaurs. It's like 95% of all life on Earth went away because of a rock from space. You could say, okay, we're getting close to being able to prevent that kind of thing from happening, but there's other things that we don't know about. Maybe there's a supernova. Maybe there's the sun does something weird. There's all these things that can happen. Um, and by the way, we can muck things up really badly too. Um, so the idea to go to another planet and have life as we know it, not just humanity, but life as we know, because we don't survive without the rest of life, by the way. we need food. We need oxygen. There's a whole bunch of things that we need that is provided to us by the rest of life. And so we take life with us. And, life as we know it took about 1 billion years from the invention of DNA to get to us, spacefaring species. And I think the reason that we exist and we're allowed to make this big of a mess is to go to space and make a backup of life by going to another planet. I'm not saying the moon, the moon is a stepping stone, and even Mars is a stepping stone. Mars is really inhospitable. We're looking for a Goldilocks planet around some other star. And of course, we haven't invented warp drive yet. But in the effort of going and trying to live on the moon and Mars, we will learn how to live sustainably on those places because it's the only way to survive. At $1 million a kilo, you're not sending up any garbage. Everything is going to be recycled, everything will be reused. And so that is how we have to live on this planet. And so all the technologies that we develop by practicing living on other planets is all how to live sustainably here. If you look at the whole space industry, we got solar panels from satellites. They were developed for satellites. Um, Fuel cells, they were also developed for spacecraft. So all these things, these technologies that are going to be the solution to fixing climate change, a lot of it came from the space industry. So we need to that foray. It's not just for the glorification, like we're so great or something like that. No, I think it's something that absolutely needs to happen.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that perspective and just how you come at it from a pretty positive angle. Not everyone does. And, in our society, I would say like around some of the space exploration, there's definitely people that are like, why are we wasting resources? It's a waste of money. There's these billionaires playing with these toys. But, the reality is that it is helping us step in the right direction of what humanity is going to need long term.
Yeah, I mean the technologies that drop out of that stuff are invaluable, and there's no way that those technologies could be developed without that kind of thing. The solar panels would not have been developed if it was just, I don't know, industry, because for back then when they were invented, they were definitely not cost effective. There's no way you could compete with fossil fuel, but in space, lifting fossil fuel to space is very expensive, and so solar energy becomes very, very necessary. So yeah, I I understand. My daughter says, "Pops, why do we want to go to mess up the moon and so on?" But no, we actually need this to survive and to prevent us from messing up this planet even more.
To fill the audience in, you have been a long-time board director at the Pacific International Space Center for Exploration Systems, longtime chairman as well. Could you share anything about that organization specifically?
Uh, Not so much about that organization, but I have another one called the International MoonBase Alliance,
Yep.
and
And you founded
we
that
have.
in
I
2017, is that
founded
correct?
2017. We had a summit. I invited all these smart people to Hawaii, and we had a meeting about how to build a moon base. It's pretty much the basic formula is there from that gathering. We have facility on the Big Island called High Seas, the Hawaii Space Exploration Analog and Simulation, where we study living on other planets. And so we give people a taste of what it's like. Our first year, 5 years were NASA missions, and there were 6 people staying inside of a dome. To go outside, they have to wear a spacesuit. If they communicate with the rest of the world, we delay that signal 20 minutes each way. That's like where Mars is when it's on the other side of the sun. So, yeah, these people were isolated. We did 5 missions: 4 months, 4 months, 8 months, 12 months, and 8 months. So these people during the mission only got to talk to each other. Today we're doing much shorter mission. We're doing moon missions. Moon is only 3 days away, and so you can go and come back and go and come back, and you can get resupplied. Mars, you can't get resupplied because Mars comes close to Earth once every, I don't know, a little over 2 years, and so that is, you can't resupply. If something goes wrong, you're stuck. You have to live off the land, so to speak. Yeah, so we're doing shorter missions, and that's it's very interesting. We're giving people a taste of what it's like to be on another planet.
And what's the status of the progress of building a moon base?
It's slow, but it kind of depends on Elon to finish his Starship. I have it on the word of not Elon, but one below Elon in SpaceX, that they're able to land me 150 metric tons on the moon and fly back without, I say it's not fly back, and come back without refueling, which is amazing. That's a good start for a moon base. And so, yeah, building the moon base into that form factor of that Starship is the interesting part.
And in your mind, what does that timeline look like? Are you and I alive when there's a moon base?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's all of a sudden we have the capability to land on the moon and do that kind of thing. Once we have that capability, then boom, it becomes a race between different people. I mean, they're the Saudis or God knows, the Indians or the Chinese. They're all wanting to do it, and whoever builds the first town or whatever is on the moon, oh, that is, they kind of own the future. And so
Yeah.
it's a new space race.
Yeah.
And like, whose is that?
Yeah.
That's a big question. And I kind of feel it's a strange question because the ownership of land is kind of a ridiculous thing.
Yeah.
It kind of does and kind of doesn't work here on Earth. A
Yeah.
lot of the problems we have is that people who believe that they own some piece of land can do anything they want to it, including destroy it, which just not the way it should be. When we quote unquote own a piece of property, we become the stewards of that property. We have to preserve whatever's there for the future generations. And it's the same thing with the moon and Mars. We have to go there and we have to preserve whatever we find there for future generations.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a difficult and complicated situation, but really exciting to see humanity on the brink of that. And I'm certainly happy to see sort of a space race happening again. I don't know if you've ever seen the show on Apple called For All Mankind.
Yeah, I'm in the middle of that.
Yeah, and just
I haven't watched it to the end. Yeah.
I won't give away any spoilers, but just for the audience, it's about what if we didn't win the race to the moon, and how did that change the space race? And it's basically has us on a much faster trajectory to getting some of these things done, and it's been really cool to watch that show. And so now we're obviously way behind in terms of the time frame, but I'm just excited to see sort of that coming back into fruition.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the Indians yesterday landed a craft on the south pole of the moon. The reason that's interesting is because that's where the ice is. The moon, the south pole and the north pole, the craters inside the craters never see the sun, so they're the coldest places in the solar system, because every place else in the solar system sees the sun sometimes and gets some energy from there. So all the comets that have ever passed by and sprayed ice, which looks so beautiful when they pass Earth, um, all that those comet leftovers are in the craters at the North and the South Pole. And so if we find a significant amount of water there, water is the base of life. It's the beginning. You know, if we didn't have water on this planet, we wouldn't have life. And all the water in the ocean, uh, some people think, scientists think that it all came from comets that passed by and dumped water on us. So yeah, it evaporated on most, like it evaporated on Mars because they don't, it's not big enough to hold an atmosphere, and obviously the moon has no atmosphere at all. So if there's no surface water can exist because it would evaporate, but ice is there. And when we have ice, where there's ice, there's water.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really, really exciting and interesting. I'm, really curious to see where we go with all of that, and really appreciate you sharing that expertise with us. Excited to, follow your journey with your space exploration, and obviously with what you're doing here on Earth with Blue Planet. And you've done some really impactful work over the years. I mean, especially of late, but overall, is there a particular story of when you were really hit with how much your work could affect change, or you really felt it?
Well, yeah, I think the crown and glory to that whole story would be the mandate in Hawaii. I mean, I flipped a switch somehow in everybody's thinking, which is great. Okay, here we are. I'm back. I had to change my spot because my computer ran out of electricity, out of battery. So now I'm plugged in, so we're good to go.
Awesome. Yeah, no worries at all. And thank you for being aware of that. And you talked about sort of the effect of what you were able to accomplish in Hawaii. And it really did have a chain reaction and continues to react. So I think that was a big accelerator for our efforts to improve the climate significantly and get us to a place where we're focused on renewable energy.
Right. Yeah. And if I can do anything in my lifetime to speed that up, then that's pretty much what I have to do. And that is kind of what I am doing. So wherever somebody will listen, I will speak and I will work on convincing them to make the transition. It's a transition we have to make anyway. The sooner you do it, the more money you make and the more money you save. So it's a logical next step.
Throughout these awesome journeys that you've been on, has there been anyone in particular that's been a really impactful mentor for you?
Yeah, I looked at your questions earlier and mentor. I was really moved by Carl Sagan. He's not somebody that I ever met. Um, I watched as he explained what was going to happen to this planet from the viewpoint of somebody who studies what happens on other planets. You can see runaway greenhouse effect on Venus, by the fact that there is just too much greenhouse gas there. Um, and so we have to understand, what the mechanism is on a planetary scale. And that thinking on planetary scale is something that normally people just don't do. They think about their local areas. Like it's like I don't know what happens inside the United States will solve everything in the world. No, it's not. We're only 6% of the people in the world. This change has to happen to everybody. And so um, yeah, we all have to come to the realization that we're all humans, and we're all dependent on the same atmosphere and the same ocean, the same water. We drink the same water. We breathe the same air. And if we mess that up, then we're all in a pickle, all of us. And so we need to all wake up and figure this part out.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you'd like, you can ask me a question now.
Yeah, yeah. I was looking at that as well. It's like you talking about justice, and is justice more important than climate, or are they the same?
I mean, I think that it's hard to say that any particular issue is more important than another one because it is kind of all one and the same. To me, it's like we're here for humanity. We're all one is sort of my perspective. Like nature, humans, earth, the universe, we're all one thing and we need to do what's best for all of us. And so wherever each of us can provide the most impact is a good place for us. And for me personally, that's in drug policy and criminal justice reform. And I'm sickened by our criminal justice system and by the incredible injustices that so many people face through it. And the more humane we can be in our world, the better off that will be. And that matters in criminal justice reform, that matters in our treatment of the environment. It's basically just overall taking care of each other.
Yeah, so a couple of things on that. The Portugal figured out how to deal with the heroin problem. It was doubling each year, and they tried to make it stricter, and that so didn't work. And then they legalized it and spent all that money on how can I say on helping people, and then it went half, half, half. So they solved their heroin problem by decriminalizing it. You can't solve the heroin or any drug problem by criminalization. It just doesn't work. I come from the Netherlands. Because of the U.S., we have on the books, we have, it says that marijuana is still a Schedule One drug, whatever, but we've never enforced any of those laws. And do we have a big drug problem? No, we have a tiny drug problem. We spend the money on helping people rather than putting them in boxes. And if you look at the criminal justice system in Scandinavia, oh my gosh, instead of putting people in a prison, they make them they put them in a village, and you as a quote unquote prisoner, you have to come back to your house every day. Now your house is your house. You can have anybody over who you want to have, like your family or your friends. They can all come over, no problem. And the police, they don't have the right to go into your house and look for drugs. That is your privacy. And so these people are rehabilitated back into society. What we do, it's truly really, and what do? We take our petty criminals and to turn them into supervillains. We send them into villain school. And then when they put them on the street at the end, they have no skill except being really really bad, being hardened criminals, and we don't bring them back into society. We don't let them vote. They paid the price. They should be able to vote. They're still citizens. What the hell? So, I mean, if you're subject to the laws of a country, you should have the right to vote. So, and the fact that they don't get to vote means that the justice system is being managed by, I don't know, the people who like to the status quo. And I
It's the
think that
top
that needs to
down when
change.
we need bottom up solutions.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
It's funny, like we sent England sent all their criminals to Australia. Did that turn into a country of criminals? No, it's just another
Mm,
country. So
yeah,
there's no difference between a criminal and a normal person except circumstance. And
exactly.
if you can take away that circumstance by giving them a chance to prosper within the system, then they will. There's no reason why they shouldn't.
Yep.
Um, but no, we don't do that. And you're talking about mostly about the U.S. It's worse in some places and it's better in some places. I
Yeah.
mean, look what's happening in Russia. Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
people are being incarcerated for what they think. That's even
Yeah.
worse.
Yeah. No, that is certainly horrifying. And there's a tremendous amount of work to do in this space. And, you know, myself, my colleagues in the various organizations I work with, we're chipping away where we can and hopefully starting to shift things in the right direction. And um, it's a tough spot.
It is.
Well, yeah, I appreciate you sort of digging into that topic with me as well. Just got a couple more for you. Aside from family, if everything were to end tomorrow, whatever that means to you, what are you most grateful for or most proud of?
Yeah, you know, um, I think at the end of the day, I'll be most proud of having made a difference. Um, I really want to end my life having improved the world that we live in a little bit, or a lot. The more I can do it, the better. I don't want to have had a long vacation. I want the end of my life to have amounted to something, and it's not about leaving a legacy. It's just about, I think it's at the very last moment of your life. You look back at your whole life. You get to see your whole life, and if you feel that you've done good things in your life, that's heaven. And if you have regrets about things that you didn't get to do or you should have done but you didn't, that's hell. I mean, simple things like saying "I love you" to your children. If you haven't done that, or to your parents, you haven't done that. That really hurts. So you know, try to get those things off the table. Do them before it's your time to go, and then you'll have lived a full life.
Yeah, it's a really great perspective. And, the sort of the big macro question I ask every guest, if you could snap your fingers and fix one thing in the world, what would it be? And how do you think that change would reverberate?
Hmm. Uh, well, one thing, if I could do one thing, is I would bring everybody up to middle class and give them an education. That's the social injustice that exists in the world, um, is ridiculous. If everybody was middle class, there would be many more quote unquote consumers, and rich people would be just happy. Um, it just doesn't make the inequity doesn't make any sense. Um, and in order for us to fix the planet, um, we really can't do it while 90% of us are just surviving, because we as human beings will do anything to survive. And that's really the basis of life. Life has to survive. And so we need to give the rest of the people equal opportunity, if you will.
Yeah, I love that answer. It comes up in this question a lot that, like, if we could just take away the need to focus on surviving from such a huge percentage of our population, the potential that would be unlocked would be tremendous. And, my political stances have changed over the years, libertarian and otherwise. Who knows where they stand today? But what I've really come to realize is we have the resources on this planet to make sure everyone is at least taken care of, doesn't have to worry about everyday survival. And what a better world we'd be in.
Yeah, I kind of use this metaphor. So we're in a lifeboat, and there are holes in the lifeboat, and water's coming in, and we're bailing to try to keep the lifeboat afloat. There are people in this world who still have a job of drilling more holes in the lifeboat. And like, that's not a job, that's a crime. That is a crime against humanity. So we need to stop thinking that people need jobs, because there's enough resources in the world to feed everybody, for example. There's enough money in the world for everybody to be middle class, for example. Um, it's just ridiculous that we have such a big difference between the top and the bottom. And yeah, sure, I'm part of the problem. I got lucky. I ended up making a game that made me a bunch of money. Um, but everybody that's made a quote unquote bunch of money, and it's just sitting on it, I really want you to use that money to do something, to fix something about the world that you think is wrong with the world. I don't care what it is, as long as it's something. And then I don't want you just to use your money. I want your talent, because obviously you were smart enough to gain all that money. Use that talent and use that money and use the time you have left to fix something basic about the world. If we all did it, the world would be fixed. Climate change would be fixed. Social injustice would be fixed. But we all have to do this. We have to give back or pay it forward.
Yes, exactly. It's exactly what we have to do, and that's what this show is about: is inspiring people to do that. And I personally have been deeply inspired by our conversation, by your work, both on the entrepreneurial and impact sides. So, thank you so much for being here and sharing that with us. I'm sure everyone listening is really moved by what you're doing. How can people best support you, your impact, your organizations?
So the organization is called the Blue Planet Alliance. blueplanetalliance.org. If you are part of a company or an NGO or an organization, join us. Basically, what we have is we have an MOU program, Memorandum of Understanding. And all the memorandum says is that we agree to work together to create a world in which humanity and nature live in harmony. That's it. So and then on an individual level, we'll be working on something next year. We're not big enough to handle 1 million people being part of the organization at this point, but who knows where we're going to end up. I would like you to be prepared to make small changes in your own life. Whatever they are, think about them. Be conscious. Don't leave the lights on. Don't throw garbage on the street. That small stuff. You can start small, and then create habits that if you can travel without carbon, walk, take public transportation, ride a bicycle. Don't eat beef. I mean, it's the most inefficient way to get food. I know it tastes good, but we have to think about the future. We're cutting down the Amazon forest so that we can make beef. That makes no sense. We need that forest. We need the forest to draw down the carbon out of the atmosphere. And so, I don't know, if you can cut your beef consumption in half, or in my case, down to zero, that would be great. And there's a bunch of things. I can't think of all of them. Have a look and figure something out. Do something.
Well, Henk, thank you again for all of your work and for sharing your story with us. It's been a true honor to have you here today, and I look forward to being in touch and continuing the conversation ourselves.
All right. Well, thank you for having me on the show. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and sorry for running out of batteries in the middle. But just let everybody know that we are doing this. This is not, there's no doubt in my mind, and there should be no doubt in your mind that we're going to fix everything. I like 100% by 2045 because it's the 100th anniversary of the United Nations. So let's fix everything by 2045. It's a great date. I hope to be alive by now. I'll be old, really old, but it doesn't matter. I still want to get it done.
Yeah,
we
absolutely.
Want to get it done.
Let's do it.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Thanks for listening to this episode of People Are the Answer. If you enjoyed the episode, share it with friends, and reviews or subscriptions on your favorite platforms go a long way to help the show grow. I want to share these incredible people and their remarkable work with as many others as possible. Thanks for your support. For more, go to peoplearetheanswer.com.